for two. Kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two. Sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, AFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 265 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. Follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Of course, we are here every Friday night on the Going for Two Live Podcast Network, on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, on all major podcast networks. And, of course, we're in the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. If you are on Twitter, unfortunately, comments are not working. So you have to go to YouTube. You go find us at Going for Two Live on YouTube. You can comment and interact with us on the show. I'm here as always with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. You can follow him on Twitter at Foss534. What's up, Ryan?
Not much. I apologize. There may be dog noises tonight. I know we haven't had them for a while, but I got two here, so it could get wild.
It's all good, man. It's all good. You know, he's our best guest.
I apologize in advance. It's probably just a little hate one of your terrible takes.
Good. Probably seems to do that. Also joining us tonight for the first time, Wailele Sallas, creator of the Fantasy 50 and part of the Undroppables. You can follow him at spelled W-A-I Sallas, S-A-L-L-A-S. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, fellas. I just am realizing that I'm like camouflage into my background. I should have chose a different shirt, but it is what it is. It's hot take summer. Let's go.
I thought it was on purpose. I was like, this is cool.
It's summertime, awesome. Man. You got to start bringing out the florals. That's just the way it rolls.
Embrace it.
And what was that, Ryan?
I said embrace it.
Embrace it, definitely. All right, man. So for those that don't know who you are, give me a rundown of kind of what you do in the fantasy space and talk about the Fantasy 50, what you do.
I appreciate you giving me the time. So basically, like many people, I was twiddling my thumbs during the pandemic and realizing I needed to do something with my time. And NFL Network was just showing kind of replays of their greatest hits. And one of those was the NFL Top 100. And I was like, how come there is nothing like this for fantasy football? How's like not the fantasy show or any of the big names done this? So I just said, I'm going to do it. So I just reached out. Like, luckily it was my first year in the Scott Fish Bowl. So I had started to meet a bunch of people in that arena. And I literally just said, hey, who wants to get in on this project? And I had over 100 people said, I'm in. And so I interviewed them and did this. And last year was the inaugural year where we did the top 50 fantasy football players of 2021. And it's basically the same. If you've seen the NFL Top 100, it's the same thing. It's a video countdown from 50 to 1, ranked by fans and analysts. And it was really fun to do. And so I'm in the process of doing it now. I already put out the teaser for this year. It's pinned on my Twitter feed, so you can get a kind of feel for what it looks like. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And this year, last year was like, there was no real kind of surprises. This year, I guarantee you there's one person everyone's going to be shocked that this person's on the list. So you have to check out. And Jeff was good enough to be included in this year. Ryan, hope you're in next year. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one for sure.
Great stuff. Yeah. And I was saying before the show, guys, the editing on this is top notch. I mean, the quality of work that he does is awesome. It's definitely worth checking out. So, check out his Twitter feed. That's where it'll be at WAI Sallas, SALLAS. Make sure to give him a follow. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the 5 101s.
And now the 5 101.
All right, this is 5 non-football related categories. Give us your 101 for this one, and let's go with your 101 duo.
For me, this was difficult. I was going to go with, George Costanza and Jerry Seinfeld. That's a good choice.
Right.
I kind of liked Andre 3000 and Big Boy, going the music route, Maverick and Goose. But for me, I'm going a little off board on this one. I have to go with Meat and Cheese. That is my choice. Meat and Cheese.
Nice.
It is the 101. You can't have a meal is always better if you add meat and cheese. I understand why some religions make the cow sacred, because the cow has the meat and it has the cheese. It is incredible. So meat and cheese for me.
Love it.
That's the best answer we've ever had.
That's the best answer so far. Yeah, definitely meat and cheese. I love it. All right. 101 fictional character you'd want to meet in real life.
So the problem I had with this one was that most of the characters I love are kind of problematic or troublesome. Like, I'm going to get into trouble. So I decided to go a way that, could lead to better fortunes for me. So I went with the genie in Aladdin. That's what I did. I just went with something,
better fortunes.
Yes. Long-term goals. Like, maybe we just have a short meeting, but I'll be good for the rest of my life. So
nice.
That's where I went with.
Nice. And with that shirt you're wearing right there, you could fit right into it.
Exactly. I would just go right from the office right to the beach.
Right. Exactly. Good stuff. All right. Your 101 question you could ask and be given the 100% absolute truth to.
Doesn't matter if you're talking to a child. It doesn't matter if you're talking to your significant other. It doesn't matter if you're talking to your superior, your boss. If you ask somebody if they are hungry, you are going to get a factual answer no matter what. Whether it's I could eat, or no, or yes, or you're always going to get. No one's going to lie about whether they're hungry or not. At least nobody I know.
All right, and this next one, you said you had a little bit of a hard time pulling. So I'm curious what you came up with here. The 101 movie you wish you had a sequel but never did.
So this is tough because obviously Top Gun Maverick is fresh in my brain, and I was like, and I don't know if you guys seen it or have talked about it, but this was like by far and away the best movie I've seen in a long time. And so I'm like, what could top that? And you may be able to tell where my brain goes with some of my answers, but for me, not immediately because took some time, but I went with Step Brothers 2. I thought, what if they go on with life, but they decide we're going to adopt some foster teenagers and they're all going to live in a house together. Nice. I love Will Ferrell. I love them as a group. And I just thought that I would like to see more of them in some capacity, and Step Brothers 2 seems like the perfect vehicle.
Nice. I like that.
They have a beef now, man.
What?
Well, mainly it's Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, but
yes, I know they have a beef. Yes,
but he definitely got brought into it because he played
Jerry Buss. Yeah.
But they got a beef. There's a little bit of a beef over it, so we really have to hope now.
Whoever thought that Jerry Buss would be the friction between two comedic legends like Jerry Buss,
right?
Out of all the things,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, last one here. Your 101 dead musical artist.
So this one was pretty easy for me. In the Scott Fishbowl, I was in that music division. It's Bob Marley for me. He's been my guy since day one. Growing up in Hawaii, everyone listens to Bob Marley. It's played nonstop, so that was an easy choice for me. It was Bob Marley. 10 out of 10. Always choose that.
That was an awesome. That was my choice too. When we first do these questions, I always give my answer the first time around. We don't do them obviously every show, but that was my answer too. Bob Marley. I love Bob Marley. I listen to it still to this day in my car. I'll be cranking it when it's like summertime, beach weather. I got Bob Marley cranking it every time. So yeah, great.
Absolutely.
Great answer.
Yep.
All right, let's get to some football stuff.
News and notes from around the league.
News and notes is brought to you, as always, by Underdog Fantasy. It's fantasy football with no waivers, no setting lineups, and no worrying about injuries. With their best ball leagues, you can do the fun part, and that's draft. It's like a mock draft you can win money from. Download the Underdog app for iOS or Android and use our promo code GF2 and get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And then for as low as $3, you can join one of our Going for Two leagues, or you can join one of the contests in the lobby, which right now they got their Best Ball Mania 3 contest. It has $10 million in prizes with $2 million going to first place. All you do is get the app, use promo code GF2, and get your deposit match up to $100 and win some money. All right. As usual, this time of year, not a ton of news. We sort of reach for some things that are somewhat news, coach speak. We get one little blurb and we all react to it. But there is one thing that could potentially have some fancy impact here. And I'll go to you first, Ryan, this one. Baker Mayfield, sounds like he's probably going to end up in here. So for one, what does it do for Baker Mayfield's value, obviously? And then what does it do for those pieces there, the DJ Moores and C's of that team?
Who reported that? Because I saw it trending today, and then I couldn't find the original, who started this rumor.
Honestly, it was just a blurb that came out on. It wasn't even anybody said it. It just seemed like if that it was almost a done deal. Like they were trying to figure out a way to get Baker Mayfield there, but I can't attach a name to any of it. I don't know where it came from.
I think part of it has to do with Robbie Anderson said he will not play with Baker Mayfield. I think that was the first thing that came out, and then it kind of snowballed, and then it became more. It came clearer as it went on. Or there was a trade, I think, during the NFL draft. I think he was almost traded.
Yeah, there was a talk for a while about it, but then just recently it spiked again, and I don't.
Then he was retiring, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
But I mean, I like Baker to Carolina. I mean, I think he's still an upgrade over Sam Darnold from what we saw last year. So I'm cool with that for both CMC and DJ Moore. And we've seen Mayfield, especially for CMC, we've seen what Mayfield does with Hunt, who's a decent pass catcher, maybe good, going to one of the best side of their backfield. This is fantastic for CMC. So I love that for him. The one part that kind of popped in my head, which right when we said this, what if Sam Darnold is part of that trade just because Baker's disgruntled and we get suspended Deshaun Watson? That makes it make sense because no one wants to roll in there with Jacoby Brissett this year.
Yeah.
I know I took that really far off, but that kind of makes sense as part of the deal, though, right?
Yeah, and I just looked at the note here. CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones reports there's an urgency on Carolina's side to trade Baker Mayfield soon, and that was on June 14th, so just a couple of days ago. So that's where it came from. All right, what are your thoughts on this, Vi? What's your thoughts on Baker going to Carolina?
To be honest, we saw Sam Darnold get benched for two separate quarterbacks last year before he was hurt and didn't finish the season.
Yeah.
So I think it's clear they don't want him in Carolina. So Baker Mayfield is definitely an upgrade. And I think we saw Baker Mayfield support two starting wide receivers in 2019. Jarvis Landry was a wide receiver 1 and ODB was a wide receiver 2 in 2019. And then Beckham got hurt in 2020. And Jarvis Landry dropped a little bit, and they leaned on the run a little bit more, but he was still able. So, in terms of DJ Moore, yes, absolutely, 100%. He could continue to produce, especially if you're getting an upgrade, and maybe have more than 4 touchdowns, which I think we'll talk about later. And then I would say for CMC, I think it probably helps them in the long run too, because I'm sure Bridgewater and Darnold were safety valving for CMC and really running him into the ground. So maybe if Baker Mayfield's pushing the ball down the field a little bit more, it saves CMC a little bit more, and he's not completely just run ragged in that offense that they lean on him so much to begin with.
Yeah, that's a good call because I think CMC could use a scale back on his workload so he can remain healthy.
1,000,000%.
Yeah, it's crazy how they're using him.
Look at their off seasons last 2 years. They've brought 2 backs in who can help relieve that a little bit.
Yep. So let's hope they do that, especially if you own CMC in fantasy, because you'd rather have him on the field, at 70% than off the field because they push him to 100% and then you get hurt and miss a bunch of games. So yeah, I agree with the 100%.
And I would also say, when you look at, obviously they're not the same player, but you look at how the Chargers used Austin Eckler last year, where they used him in dynamic positions, whether it was inside the red zone or when they needed a big play for that explosiveness, and they used some of their other running backs in kind of the middle of the field. So if they start to position McCaffrey in that same way, then you're going to get the best of him, which is still going to be a great fantasy player. You're just not going to only get four games with him.
Yep, exactly. This next one here, Ryan, Josh Jacobs, supposedly a bell cow role is unlikely for him this season, which I think a lot of common sense, we thought, okay, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They're going to run him into the ground because it'll be basically his last year there. But they're coming out now saying that they're going to lean a little bit more on White there. the rookie. What are your thoughts on this? Is this just off-season speak about the rookie, or do you think this is legit?
I mean, it's good, and it's not surprising. He had 254 touches or 271 total touches last year, but he only got 52% of their carries on the team, and his snap count was only 54%. He was in a timeshare that was just mucky because there were so many different guys who rotated through. They've always wanted that, and he wasn't a bell cow. I don't think how you view Josh Jacobs really changes. Like, chances are he's going to be an RB2, just like he's been the last 2 years, with a ton of yardage. And Zamir White comes in, takes 150 carries. That doesn't hurt him because there's no other real quality backs on the field. So a timeshare is good.
Fair. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, when you look at the environment of the bell cow, you have maybe five teams out of 32 who have a bell cow. So I think right now, from a fantasy football perspective, you're not looking for, if you can get a bell cow, great. But if not, you're going to look for that efficient guy. And Josh Jacobs has proven he'll be an RB2 for you regardless. And if he's getting around that same load, even he came out and said, hey, let's get Kenyon Drake the ball a little bit more last year. And he still produced. So, I don't have an issue with him saying that he's not going to be a bell cow. He's still going to probably get around 60% of the carries, which, is what to be expected from, your RB1, RB2, if you're not one of those top 5 backs who are getting 70% of the carries.
Yeah,
or
a good call.
The shares. Yeah.
Good call. So this next one here is like almost the definition of us reaching in the offseason here. It's just a simple blurb from Tom Brady. But Tom Brady said Russell Gage has to have a big year. Tom Brady actually went out and he was the one that recruited Russell Gage, so he has to say that because if he doesn't, it makes him look bad. But Ryan, what does this do for Russell Gage's value right now? Are you believing this?
Boost it to a point where I want to sell him in fantasy football for a profit. Like, Russell Gage is Russell Gage. Like, we've had enough of his career to know that. And yes, we're probably going to be missing Chris Godwin. So if you want to hold on the Gage for those 5-6 weeks when Godwin's out and he may blow up then, sell during the middle of that. Just don't wait till it's too late.
Yep.
But, I mean, if he's a receiver for 2, he's going to be good for that time.
Yep.
But I'm going to use that to sell because it's not a long-term option. He's a good fix. He's a good deep threat for him. But Mike Evans still going to the red zone, a ton of targets. So he'll be second fiddle, which is fine in that offense, but it's just till Godwin gets back. He's a placeholder.
Yeah. You feel the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. I love all the agreements we're doing here. This is nice. There's a part of me that wants to believe Tom Brady is saying this just to kind of stick it into the Atlanta Falcons a little bit, being that they're in the same division. Like, Russell Gage is going to be this amazing player for us, and he wasn't for you in Atlanta. I envision it to, like, when Jordan in the Last Dance would say, and I took that personally, I feel like Tom Brady's doing a little of this there. But I will also say to what Ryan said, you have Mike Evans, who's had 1,000 yards, I think 8 straight seasons. He's going to be their number 1 guy. Leonard Fournette had 83 targets last year. He's a forgotten guy in that offense when you think about who's getting the targets in that offense. Yep. So where does Gage lie? Like you said, he'll be good to have until Godwin gets back and you sell high either now or after week 1 or 2, but he's not a long-term solution.
When do they play the Falcons? Because this is that stretch, man, with the way you talked about Brady just kind of being that guy. That's a huge DFS play. You sell him right after.
Mm-hmm. What's great is I just looked. So I hadn't even thought about that angle. The 28-3 in the Super Bowl. So I Googled Russell Gage's contract just to see if it was like 3 years, 28 mil. It's 3 years, 30 mil. So they could have just shaved off $2 million to get one more little jab. Would have been nice.
That would have been hilarious.
They should have done 328 and then put the 2 on like the signing bonus, added the signing bonus or something. That would have been incredible. That would have really blew it there.
All right, last one here is not really fancy related. I was just curious to see your thoughts on how you think about this, Ryan, with Richard Sherman. I think he'll be the sideline reporter for Thursday Night Football in their broadcast team. What are your thoughts on Richard Sherman on the sideline?
I fully support it. Richard Sherman, he's entertaining. Like I don't know how much I'm cool with it. I like them bringing in new people. If they suck, everyone goes crazy on Twitter and rips on him for 3 days, and we move on. It's entertaining for a little bit. But if he's incredibly smart. He knows football, and players love him. He has good relationships. He has his podcast that does well. Like, he's probably going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, all signs point to him being good, and I'm there for it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I think it's the ideal situation, and I think more broadcast booths should go to having a ex player on the sideline, so that you only need to go to him when they have something good. He's not the color where he has to have something great every time.
Right.
He can just say, hey, I got something, I just saw it, and they can go to him and he can bring something really great, and you don't have to he doesn't have to be on 100% of the game. So given that they're kind of starting him with this, we all know he can talk. We all know he talks trash, and he's very educated, from Stanford and salient points all the time on his podcast. So I think he'll be a nice addition and really kind of bolstering that Thursday night lineup, which I think will be fun.
Yeah,
I kind of hope somebody freaks on the sidelines like he did back in the playoffs back in the day.
Yeah.
And week 5, Falcons Bucks.
Oh,
so you sell them right after week 5, you're good to go.
Yep. So that's exactly right. Godwin probably won't be back by then, so that'll be
he'll probably be back week 7.
Yep.
So
yeah, and I would also check what your trade kind of restrictions are. So usually there's a waiting period after a trade. So if you can trade him before the game, so you get him for that game, and then trade him after.
Right after, yep.
That's even better.
That's perfect. Perfect. All right, so since we've been doing a lot of strategy in the month of June, that's kind of what we decided to do for our theme. Tonight, we're going to be talking about roster construction, rebuild strategy, and a win now strategy. So before we get to some of the actual questions that I had on here, I just want your thoughts, Ryan, real quick on just general roster construction, at kind of what you look at doing as you're going into your building your teams. Is there anything that you kind of try to do as far as positions or player ages or anything that you try to do?
I mean, it all depends on time of year in your team. But in general, this time of year, I'm just trying to acquire as many elite players. We feel this last week a lot too, but I just want to try to get as many elite players as I can. I can fill out the rest of the roster from there. I'm focusing on RB1s, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, RB2, so I know it's going to get volume and important. And I'm fine with doing 2 for 1, 3 for 1s. I'm giving up some depth now because I want the best players, because it's all or nothing this time of year. And you can fill out a roster. You can fill out a bench. You get so many bench players off waivers and throw-ins on trade. Just be patient. Do as many great players as you can for now. I'm not really concerned with what my starting lineup is at this moment.
So let's fast forward a little bit. We're getting closer to the season. Is there anything you're looking to do at that point? You're going into week 1, and how do you want your roster to look for week 1? You just want as many elite players as you can get?
Hopefully I've acquired a few. I want my roster to be solid. I don't want any real weaknesses. I want a tight end I'm comfortable with in Dynasty. I really do. We're at the point now, if you don't have an elite tight end, it's hard because you're just guessing. I don't want a tight end any worse than Dalton Schultz, which I love Dalton Schultz, but that's my center. If I don't have anything better than him, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And
Good
QB
call.
you can make work. I don't care as much. Even if it's super flex, you can make QB work. It's the rest of the positions that aren't predictable in a lot of cases that I want to have locked up. So I want my RB1, RB2, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 locked in, comfortable with. I can start them and not worry.
I like it. What about you, Vay?
For me, it's a little different. I'm not really aggressive in the off season. I more want to, I want to say after the draft, obviously you start to move pieces and stuff like that. And then once this kind of season goes around, I kind of just hold firm. And then once training camp starts and news and rumors and all that, I try and use that to my advantage. But I would say at this point, it's kind of just, wait. I know a lot of people are aggressive like Ryan and want to really start pushing for elite. And I just like to wait and see. I always feel confident about my teams unless I have a rebuild. And then I'm trying to move some pieces and trying to get some assets. But I would say for the major part, I usually hold firm during this time as it gets closer to the off season.
I
Preseason.
I think complete opposite. I'm more aggressive this time of year if my team's a contender. And if I'm a rebuild, I'm more patient, which sounds backwards, but we'll get it. But I'm so aggressive this time of year for trying to put my roster over the edge.
Yeah, I think when you have Go ahead.
I would say the thing that scares me of that is if you're really aggressive to getting those elite, like you are a preseason injury away of taking an elite team and like just being in a rebuild immediately. And and we've seen it, especially last year. You saw how many guys go down in the preseason in the early weeks. Like if you put yourself in a position to win before the season starts and something happens, like you're like, well, looks like rebuilding that year. So that's the reason. That's my more fear than anything else is just I kind of hold back and wait.
Yeah, that's a good call. So I was going to say that with you waiting, sometimes this time of year value is stale. Really, other than like the blurb about Tom Brady and maybe that boosted Russell Gage just a little bit, value is value at this point. There's not a whole lot that's going to be changing. So if you did make any trades pre-draft or during the draft, right now it's hard to gain any value of any of your players. But when you wait to the you get to the preseason and somebody either gets hurt or someone has a big play in the preseason or is being hyped up in camp, values suddenly start spiking and changing, and then you can start moving players at their peak value and try to build your team that way too. So I do like to try to be patient way of doing things. But I can see Ryan's point of view too, because I have a few teams that I will be aggressive with, knowing that I need to do something now, thinking that, oh yeah, value is stagnant right now, but so are some of these players that may not be quite as active as me and don't pay attention to all the little tidbits of everything. Maybe I can take advantage of that by making trades now.
Yeah, and especially if you're really high on somebody when the market is stale. Like if you're really high on somebody and they're not really dipping or going high, you can use that to your advantage and really kind of be aggressive with them, knowing that there's no new information coming out about them. So, guys like Ryan always scare me because they'll send you a trade and you're like, what information came out that I missed? Yep. Like, and you just start Googling for like 15, 20 minutes trying to find why is he sending me a trade for this guy? And then you realize it's just him. He's just really aggressive.
I legit will like go to bed some nights and be like, after a podcast, be like, I'm making trade offers every single week tomorrow. Like I legit do this probably once every couple weeks for no reason. And that's how you sometimes like some of the players you can get now when you're not thinking about them or bored with them. Everybody's so bored right now, and people tend to make dumb decisions when they're bored.
Yeah, I think in my offseason around this time when things are stale, I'm looking for those really cheap guys that I think can gain value, maybe not even this year, but possibly next year. So I look at contracts a lot. I look at, all right, whose contracts are coming up, who's probably not going to get paid, who might be somewhere else, and who's going to benefit. Example is David Montgomery with Khalil Herbert behind him. I'm trying to buy Khalil Herbert everywhere because David Montgomery
2019 draft class.
Yeah, basically the whole draft class is going to be for contracts next year, and is Khalil Herbert going to be the next Chicago Bears running back if Montgomery's not there? So I can get Khalil Herbert cheap right now. Yes, he may not have a season for 2022 unless Montgomery gets hurt, but for 2023, I could have this running back for the Chicago Bears. So that's the kind of things that I look for. I look for those guys that are really cheap. No one's really thinking about. They're kind of bottom of the roster guys currently, but who's going to gain value in the next year or two that I can get right now on the cheap?
Yeah, just scroll through DLF's ADP and see who looks wrong.
Yep, exactly.
And then make an offer for somebody better than them and get the person to trade that to you on like 2 or 3 counters to get the guy you really want.
So Ryan, you kind of mentioned a little bit, between rebuilding and contending. Let's talk about when to rebuild. Like, when do you look at your roster and go, this time it's time for me to rebuild because of this or because of that? Like, what are your reasons for rebuilding?
If I don't think I can win a championship, I'm going to rebuild. It may not be a very significant one. Like, there's times you miss the playoffs and your team missed the playoffs because they were hurt and you can just chill. Like, don't overreact there. But if you're just not making playoffs because you don't have talent, or if you don't think you win a championship because you don't have good enough talent and they're not young players especially, start moving, man. But, like, we talked about being aggressive and being patient. That's not impatient. Like, you have veteran running backs. Don't trade them now. Wait till preseason when people start getting hurt. Wait till that playoff run in fantasy when the number 1 seed lost their 2 running backs, and you can ship them there and knock off a couple of first-round picks and some young talent who may not be stars this year because they want to win that money. Like, be patient with those players and let people come knocking at your door instead of always trying to get it yourself. And then no matter what, I'm always trying to get like that extra bullshit third. or a fourth just tossed in so I can try to move around later in the draft. Like, because people throw them in. If I'm like, oh, I don't want – if someone's like, I don't want to do this trade right now and I need that player, I have no problem sending a third, a second from 2024 if I want to get a player and milk it. Like, they're the ones buying right now.
That's a great call because I do that all the time. Like I get those late. Like I got, if you look at my home league right now, I think I have 24 thirds because I've got them thrown in. Now when we get to that 24 draft, I'm going to package all those thirds and I'm going to move up. I'm going to find a way to get second or put that with a second to move into the first, something like that. So yeah, that's a great call right there. I like that.
One other thing with the rebuild I want to say is it should only take 1 year. Like a rebuild isn't a 3-year process.
Right.
You can do it in 1 year if you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's a big misconception when people are trying to move pieces and rush. And when you make bad deals, that makes the rebuild go long. If you're smart about it, you can do it. You acquire as many picks as you can, as many players under 26 as you can, and then move on.
Yep. Now, I see you kind of nodding your head a little bit there, so I'm assuming you're agreeing with most of what he's saying there. But so you're looking at your team now. You've decided, okay, this is a rebuild. What kind of assets are you looking to move? Are you looking to just move your older players? Are you looking for guys that are peak value that you could sell even if they are young? Like, what kind of guys are you looking to move on from?
If I'm in a rebuild, there's nobody that's off limits, and that's my strategy for every trade. Whatever I'm doing, because if you go into a trade and saying I'm not going to trade this guy, then you're limiting what you might get in your return. So I always look at any trade that anyone's up for grabs, but what I'm definitely looking for, like the one thing I was nodding my head the most that I liked what Ryan said is the idea of like when people consider they're in a rebuild, they are like, I got to start doing this now. When you know you should know the assets that you have, and you should know the value that you have. And I like when he was talking about waiting, because you never know, especially when you look at last year when so many guys went down out of, elite fantasy players. There was people hungry to get that. And if you're holding on to those assets, you are now in a prime position to get the most back. So for me, like if I'm in a rebuild, there's nobody that's off limits. I want the best value back. That's for the next couple of seasons, long term. And if it helps them, great. But I don't care. Like a lot of times people, when they look at trades, they're like, oh, that really helps them out. I don't care if people on the outside look like that person won the trade, because all I care about is if it gave me what I needed to make that rebuild happen. So that's kind of what I look at.
Yeah, that's funny. I get that question a lot. Not even just in rebuilds too. I get guys that are like, all right, I'm a contender and my number one competition offer me this trade, but if I make this trade, he gets better. But I'm like, you can't worry about that. Yes, he might be your number one competition. He might be the guy you play in the championship game, but you have to worry about yourself, getting your team better. If that trade helps you, who cares what it does for him? Just worry about your team. So yeah, that's a very good point. I like that. Ryan, moving over to like a win now strategy. So, if you're in win now mode, are you still making a lot of trades? Or are you looking to just buy some pieces that can help you for a year? Like what kind of thing are you looking for in a win now strategy?
So the win now is when I'm assuming if I'm a championship caliber team, and I'm trying in the season, I'm trying to obviously keep my team afloat, go for the championship. That's when I may make some questionable trades, but that's when I'm trying to get some handcuff players, some backups, some guys who might give me value just this year, some older players, and get rid of young dart throws who I might be excited about, who may not have done it this year, or draft picks. If I'm in a rebuild, I'll have a dozen draft picks. Like my two contending teams that went into this year, before three contending teams, I had one first round pick between all of them. Yeah. And I traded for it the week before. I don't even know if I had a pick through the third round in most of those drafts. I'd trade away all my picks if I'm trying to win a championship. I'm all in. If there's an inkling I can get win money, I'll deal with the repercussions later, because I'll have those good players, and if I end up blowing it, go and rebuild, they're going to get shipped down the season next year anyway when it all falls apart. So screw it. But I'm trying to win now. I don't want to be in the middle. That's my biggest nightmare is middle of the pack. So you're either not getting good draft picks or not winning.
Yep. That's a good point there.
No Fisher life for me. No Jeff Fisher life.
No Jeff Fisher. No 8-8.
No 8-8, man.
Man, what's your strategy here for a win now? Like, what are you looking to do mainly?
I mean, I'm going to echo Ryan once again. If I'm going to win now, whatever it takes. But if you're going to win now, that means the guys you got are performing, and you don't really need to get a stud unless you have a position where there's some need and you want to go get another piece. Then that's great. But I'm looking for depth. But I'm also when I'm trading, I'm trying to get that guy, but I'm also looking for somebody they might want to ship off that I might be high on as a future asset as well. So I think there's two ways to look at it. Like, you can look at getting like those 2-for-1, 3-for-1s, but if it's something more to that and they want to go bigger, then I'll try and take somebody off there trying to unload if I like them. So yeah.
Kane Frost says if Purgatory had a picture, it would be Jeff Fisher. Nice. That's a great comment right there. I'm with you both. Obviously, I think win now. In win now, sometimes you're buying guys that you wouldn't necessarily buy if you were, rebuilding, or even if you're just, semi-contending. If you're going for it all, you're buying guys maybe like Adam Thielen, where he's an older guy. He's still going to get his points. He might be your RB or your wide receiver 3 or 4 at that point, but older pieces that you wouldn't necessarily go out to get that could help your team in the long run. And like Ryan mentioned, getting those handcuffs that have value. The guys like Alexander Madison, if you had Dalvin Cook, you go out and get someone like that, where if Cook goes down, you still have someone you can plug in there and be quite productive for you.
Khalil Herbert, for one.
Khalil Herbert, exactly. That's a good point.
No one wants to.
Right. I always tell everybody, when they're talking about draft picks and they're a contender, I'm like, draft picks are not going to win you anything this year. There's nothing that draft pick's going to do for you this year unless you sell it for a player. So if that's it. Get those draft picks out of there and get players in there. I like that call. It's too well.
Yeah, and like Ryan said, guess what? If you don't win, you can trade those guys that you either picked up or trade guys you have and get draft picks. Like, that's the whole name of the game. There's nothing is firm. You can, if you don't win it, you can go there, or you can try and bolster your roster even more. So it's a fluid situation, but if you're in win now, you better be both feet in, or you're not going to even be close to win. You got to be 100% all in to go that route.
I treat it all like an arms race. I really do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to get the biggest, baddest things.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm writing an article. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is a time where being a baseball fan helps, because you see in the trade deadline, that's what they do. They're like, we're throwing it all in for a 3-month rental to try and win the World Series. And that's like what you have to do. It's like, you're basically have to view it as you're just renting this guy to try to win that title. And if it turns into a long-term solution, even better. But if you're win now, you're win now, not win now and next year. It's just win now. That's what you have to be concerned with.
And sometimes renting's more expensive than owning. Like, it's just part of the game.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm writing an article right now. It's sort of a fluff article for this off season, but it's like the 12 worst type of dynasty managers. And one of them that I have is I'm calling him Bob the Builder. It's the guy that's always in constant rebuild mode. Like, every year he's selling off his players to get more draft picks because the next year's class is even better. And I'm like, dude, at some point you gotta just go for it and try to win. You can't just.
That's the best player in having a league.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that guy. I don't know what's the worst.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I think a line that I use in there is fantasy football is not about the best portfolio. It's about just winning. Just get it. Having the most picks and the best young players is not the way to do it. All right. Are you tired of vague and misleading injury reports costing you games? Well, Going for Two's own injury analyst, Dr. James Ferretti, wants to help with his book, Injuries Suck, but Your Team Doesn't Have to. The doc will show you a clear approach to player injuries, media reports, and coach speak, as well as how to anticipate and act quickly when injuries strike. Available for purchase on Amazon, or you can use the link in his Twitter profile at TFSDoc. Stop guessing, start winning.
And now, it's Fact or Cap.
All right, this is a bit of a newer segment for us, and Ryan made fun of me because Fact or Cap it's for the kids. It's a kid statement, and I'm here I am. I'm turning 45 in like 3 days, and I'm trying to be a kid with this Fact or Cap thing. But Ryan, what were you going to say there? You're going to probably make fun of me again?
No,
I was going to say
no.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, is the music for it new? Or did I just not pay attention last? Did I like zero?
Probably just didn't pay attention. Yeah, it's the same music. When I sent the link, because I have a guy that does my stuff for me, when I sent it to him, like, I want it to be like a game show. I want a game show to sort of feel like an old 90s game show. And that's kind of what he came up with, was the music in the background and all that. So it came out pretty well for that drop. All right, so the way this works, guys, I'm going to give you a statement, and basically you're just going to tell me if it's fact or cap. And we'll just kind of alternate these between the two and discuss them a little bit as a group. But the first one here, I'll go to you on this one, Ryan, since you're there in Pittsburgh and you got to see this guy up close. Juju Smith-Schuster will finish outside the top 30 in wide receivers this year. He's currently being drafted at the wide receiver 35 currently. What are your thoughts on Juju?
I love the value of him here. Like, we all want Sky Moore to be something there, but in all reality, Juju catches everything. He's caught, like, he had one drop on 120 plus targets last year, and it's been the same like that every year of his career. He's not that exciting. Even though I remember he is Dynasty wide receiver 1, but he catches everything. He's a good route runner. He's on a block, so he stays on the field, and he's a reliable second option across the middle with Kelsey. Like, it's a really good opportunity for him on an offense. It's unbelievable. Like, that running after the catch that he's so good at. Guess what? In Pittsburgh, they were all up in the box on everything, crushing him every time he caught it. There's going to be running rooms for him in KC with that offense. Yeah. Even without Hill stretching the field, it's still electric. I think he's going to do really well there. I love him at 35. I think he can finish within that top 30.
All right, so you're going cap on that one there. Do you agree there?
I also agree that this is a cap, yo. I would say the thing that sticks out to me is anytime Juju has played over 12 games, he's never finished lower than 24th in wide receiver ranking. So, and that was with Ben Roethlisberger in his twilight. So now you take him to Mahomes in his peak, and I don't see how he doesn't perform well in that offense with Kelsey, with Andy Reid, who wanted him last year. So now he's got him finally. I can't see him not putting him in a position to succeed.
That's a great point, because he did want to. They offered him a contract. He took less to say, and you're right. So then he went out and got him this year. So that's a good point. He definitely wants him, and without Hill there, he basically is the de facto number one, I think, there. All right, next one here for you, Vi. It's A.J. Dillon will finish the 2022 season with more fantasy points than Aaron Jones. Fact or cap?
So this is kind of a cap fact combo platter, and the reason I say that is because I think A.J. Dillon finishes with more rushing yards, but I still think Aaron Jones finishes with more fantasy points. And the reason I believe that is whenever Devontae Adams was out the last two seasons, Aaron Jones was wide receiver 1. He was the one getting all the targets, all the catches. So I still see him being a huge part of that offense, even though they might be trying to give A.J. Dillon more of those rushing roles. They had nearly a 50-50 split last year, but Aaron Jones out of the backfield is still Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. And now that he's lost his favorite target, we all know Aaron Jones likes to throw to the guys he trusts. And right now, I think that's only Aaron Jones. So I like Aaron Jones to continue to lead that running back room in fantasy points.
I like it. Ryan, what are your thoughts here? Fact or cap? A.J. Dillon will have more fantasy points.
I have Aaron Jones more right now. Actually, they're one of the few teams I actually got the projections on. I have him with about 50 points more. The big difference is the passing game. Like, he was their second leader in targets last year, and like you said, that's who Aaron Rodgers trusts. He doesn't really trust anybody else here, and he's gonna get. I have him penned in for 68 targets, which might be low. I have him carrying the ball less than A.J. Dillon, but it doesn't matter because most leagues are PPR, and he'll make up for yardage-wise and in the red zone there. So I think they're both viable starting fantasy options, but I still think Jones gets the edge.
Yeah, I'm with you both there, too. I think Jones has the edge there because of that PPR upside. I do think that Dillon will have a better season fantasy-wise than he did last year. I think he'll improve upon that, but I do think that Aaron Jones still with that PPR upside, I forget the exact stat, but I think like a target is worth like 1.4 points, whereas a rushing attempt is worth like 0.8 or something like that in fantasy. So the target is more valuable than the rushing attempt. So I think Jones still ends up with a little bit more than A.J. Dillon there. All right, Ryan, going back to you with this next one. Deebo Samuel will have fewer than 25 rush attempts in 2022. He had 59 last year. All the talk is that he'll get less carries. He doesn't want to do the running back thing. But what are your thoughts on that one?
I think it's cap. I think he'll still get a decent amount. He might not get 60 like last year, but especially because they brought even more running backs because what San Francisco need more than a 14 running back. But they're definitely going to use him in creative ways because it's part of his game. And for him to think otherwise is absolutely stupid because that's part of what makes him so special as a player and why he deserves that big money. And with him not being paid yet, he's going to want to showcase that as much as possible. It might be later in the year when he's really working on that, but I think he'll definitely come. 25 is really not much.
Yeah, it's not much at all. And you figure that 59 he got really towards the end of last year because he wasn't getting those in the beginning of the year last year. So I do think he can get over 25, and he may even approach that 60 if you spread that over a 18-game season. That's not really that much. So I'm with you there. We're going to alternate the rest of these here just so we can get the show within under an hour. So we'll go back to you, Vay, with Tyreek Hill will not finish inside the top 10 among receivers this year. Of course, with the move to Miami, everybody's kind of down on Tyreek Hill. So is that factor cap?
That's cap. I mean, he's still Tyreek Hill. He's still Cheetah. And Mike McDaniel is going to put that boy in some space to let him run. And when you put him up with Jalen Waddle, now you have two guys who could pretty much catch the ball anywhere on the field and potentially take it to the house. And so it's foolish to think that Tyreek Hill, and if you look at in seasons past, he doesn't. Outside of last year where I want to say he had over 100 targets easily. Outside of then, he wasn't a guy who needed a lot of targets to get a lot of fantasy points. And I think you'll see that same situation here in Miami where defenses are going to have to choose. Are you going one-on-one with Waddle and Hill, or are you going to combo one guy and leave another guy open? And I don't think you can do that. So I see a lot of potential for both of them to finish very well. We've seen it before where two wide receivers finish wide receiver one. It's probably going to be more wide receiver one, wide receiver two situation, but I still can see Tyreek Hill with his explosiveness finishing in the top 10.
Yeah, when people give me that argument about Tua, I'm like, well, did you see Alex Smith and Tyreek Hill? They were pretty good. And Tua is basically Alex Smith. I mean, basically what he does is just dink and dunk, but he was still pretty good. This next one here I put in just to get Ryan triggered because I know how much he loves to talk about this next guy. DJ Moore will catch more than 4 touchdowns in 2022. I think he's going on, 3 straight seasons now with 4 touchdowns exactly. I know he's your boy.
Seasons.
Yeah, 3 straight seasons with 4 touchdowns.
It's not even the touchdowns that bother me, even though it's crazy that his touchdown production is so bad with 135, 118, 163 targets in the last 3 years. And 3 straight 1,100-yard seasons. The only receiver to do that right now. But it's definitely possible. This offense just needs to improve, especially if Chris McCaffrey's there. I think they move the ball. They were one of the worst scoring offenses in the league. And to get touchdowns, your offense needs to be good enough to give you opportunities. DJ Moore literally was their only real weapon last year. Terrace Marshall was a joke. Robbie Anderson, as we see, has one foot out the door, and there's no Christian McCaffrey. If this offense improves, he gets more opportunities, which means touchdowns. It's bound to happen. He's just been in a wide receiver hellhole right now because Carolina's been so terrible. But, yeah, I'm going to bet the over on this year for it. It's happening. You can't get that many targets and not score.
Yeah, and the crazy thing –
it's impossible. Touchdown regression is real. We talk about it all the time until it goes the wrong way, and it fills out and it doesn't fill up your narrative. It's going to happen. You can't be targeted that much and not score, especially if this offense improves just a little bit. Or if Baker Mayfield goes there.
Agreed 100%. I had an argument on Twitter with DJ Moore and Michael Pittman, and it was crazy to me when I looked at it. Moore's going into his 5th season, Pittman's going into his 3rd season, but they're both coming off their age 24 season. They're both basically the same age, and Moore's been in the league 2 years longer than Pittman has. So still a very, very young guy as well. I do think he can get over that 4 touchdown trend that he has there.
Breakout age is great until you're not scoring touchdowns. Apparently, with that 91st percentile.
Yeah, exactly. We can go all night with DJ Moore.
I feel like I've just been arguing this for 2 weeks into a point. And it just gets me more mad every time.
All right, Vay, back to you here. Travis Etienne will score more fantasy points than all of the 2021 running back class, which includes Najee Harris and Javonte Williams. Factor cap.
It's cap. Najee Harris. We'll make this easy. Why would you go against Najee Harris? He was the touch leader in the whole NFL with Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback. And I know Ryan's in Pittsburgh. I hope he agrees. There's not much of an upgrade or downgrade with whoever they put there, given what Roethlisberger was doing last year. So Najee Harris can only get better unless he gets hurt, given the workload he has. But I hope that doesn't happen. But until Najee Harris is not there, I can't see anybody supplanting him currently.
I want to ask you, Ryan. I know we're going to alternate these ones, but I know you're a big Travis Etienne guy. Are you still going Najee Harris here in this argument, or do you?
With zero hesitation, I'm taking Najee Harris up there with Eddie running back. He's borderline my RB1. Like, he's my RB2, but like he's close. I don't know why people are starting to fade him because he's old for a second-year player.
They're saying that the offensive line didn't get any better. That's the whole narrative with that. And I'm like, well, it wasn't that good last year.
But it did. But it did get better. And yeah, they may not be a better offense, but Mitch Trubisky can at least throw over 12 yards. So that opens things up a little bit too. Like, he has, 367 touches or something like that?
Yeah, and he didn't come off the field. I think the first 6 or 7 games, he played every snap.
Travis Etienne's not going to get over 215 touches. So we're going to see like a 40% decrease in Najee Harris touches for Travis Etienne to get in there.
And I would also say it'd be foolish for Jacksonville to give him a heavy workload coming off of his injury. Like you invested a first-round draft pick in him. You're not going to just throw him in there and say, we're going to just run you to death. And Najee Harris, Pittsburgh, that's what they do. They are going to run you to death. Yes, literally.
The shelf life might not be wrong, but that's okay. And also, if he was just a runner, if we're comparing him just against a guy who runs the ball and not a receiving threat, he caught the ball out of the backfield as well as any running back last year.
Yep.
He's going to get 60 targets, and that's, like we talked about before, that's worth more in fantasy, and that's what we're counting. That's what we went at the end to get is 50 or 60 targets. And we know Najee's going to get it. A plus 240 carries.
Yep.
Volume wins.
He's basically Christian McCaffrey, but bigger and can take the workload with the workload he is getting. I like it. All right. Let's see. Ryan, this one's for you. If Miles Sanders can stay healthy in 2022, he could be this year's Joe Mixon and finish top 10 among running backs.
It's like you hate me sometimes. Some things just makes me mad. This one is because I wish he could. I love Miles Sanders. I think he's an exciting talent. When he gets the ball, things happen. He's averaged over 5 yards an attempt his whole career, and he's gotten better every year. But Nick Sirianni refuses to give him the ball. He still only averaged 11 carries a game last year when he was healthy. Joe Mixon, anytime he's been healthy, he has pounded the ball and got a ton of volume. Miles Sanders isn't getting that. And I know the passing offense is opening up a while, but I don't know if we can get that Joe Burrow fear that you have, that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins thing, no matter how good their receivers are, it's the QB difference. It's still not quite that. And he's not going to carry because they're going to give Boston Scott carries. They're going to give Kenneth Gainwell carries.
Yeah.
They're going to give Bob the Builder off the street 100 or give him 50 carries. And
Bob the Builder being Jordan Howard because he tends to seem to always come back there and get carries. He'll come in and
I thought he was gone, but
he's gone. But they'll bring him back just for a few touchdowns. Yeah.
The ghost
once
of Brian
November
Westbrook
comes around,
6 attempts.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's do the last one here. Dameon Pierce will score the most fantasy points of all the Texans running back this year, which includes, of course, Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead, and Royce Freeman. What are your thoughts on this one, Bay?
Jeff, no disrespect, but who cares? No, I would say what you're looking at in Houston, you're looking at peak flex player. I think Marlon Mack is going to be the guy they rely on. So Dameon Pierce if you're relying on him to outscore Marlon Mack, I think it's mainly because of the explosiveness on some big plays. But I think Marlon Mack's the guy they bring in who's in that offense, who runs that offense, because he's the pass blocker, he's the veteran, and they brought him in purposely to be the starter. So I think Marlon Mack leads that team this season, as much as it pains me to say Marlon Mack is leading anything.
Yeah, and no disrespect taken, because you're right. I mean, this Houston Texans running back, who cares? Because that's how it's been for the past couple of years. Who cares?
Circling back to his point about not really caring about them, we asked earlier, how do you know if your team's a rebuild? If you're starting one of these running backs. there's your answer. That's how you know your team's a rebuild.
Definitely. Anybody outside of Brandon Cooks starting your roster, you're probably in a rebuild mode. Good stuff. All right, let's wrap this up.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Vay, who do you got for your Forgotten Fantasy Player this week?
All right. So I love this question, and I hope nobody has said this. I obviously couldn't research your entire catalog, but I went with one from Alexandria, Virginia, Timothy Michael Hightower. And it's not because of his 399-yard, 10-touchdown rookie season. It's because over the course of his career of gaining less than 3,000 yards, in week 16 of 15, in championship week, he ran for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns and won a lot of people, including myself, a fantasy football championship. And that is the only reason I will always remember Tim Hightower with the Saints. I picked him up like before the playoffs started, thinking I just need a guy in case. And then I started him during the playoffs, and he was amazing throughout the playoffs, including that finisher. So yes, Tim Hightower, you are a legend in my household.
Nice. I like it. And I think that's why we have you tell stories about players, because your story, no matter how much we may have had him on or not had him on, your story is always unique. And I like the way you broke that down. He won you a championship. That's awesome.
Didn't he wasn't there like 2 playoff runs with fantasy playoff runs with him too? Like, wasn't there 2 different, like once with Arizona where he won people championships as well? Like, he got that clutch gene.
I didn't look at I just saw his rookie year. He had only 400 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns. And I was like, whoa, that's like kind of an outlier. Maybe that was the year. I remember in Arizona having a good year. And then I want to say, didn't he end up in Washington, as a free agent as well? But he didn't pan out. I think he blew his ACL or something like that before ending up in New Orleans. But yeah, I remember Hightower, flash in the pan, but a king in my heart.
Yeah, he definitely had a couple of those seasons where he came down the stretch. Yeah, Arizona, Washington, and then also New Orleans. Yep, good stuff, great stuff. And it's funny you mentioned Alexandria, because that's like I can literally walk out of my house and throw a brick, and I can probably hit Alexandria. That's how close it is to me. Yeah,
and he went to Richmond, so he's born and bred Virginian.
Yep, definitely. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, that wraps the podcast up, guys. Let's go around the room real quick. Give us your Twitter handle one more time, and if you want to plug anything, and we'll go to you first, Beck.
All right. Well, Twitter's right there. It's at Sallas, WAISALLAS. And the only thing I'm plugging is look out for the Fantasy 50. The first 10 names will drop either at the end of this month or beginning of next month. There'll be some fun names on there, some fun interviews, some candid moments with the analysts and the fans who contributed. And so look out for that. And that's all I'm pushing this time around.
Good stuff. And I definitely want to see who that player is that everyone's going to be surprised about. I'll definitely be looking out for that one. Ryan, what you got?
Find me on Twitter, Foss534. Find me here Wednesday nights. Find me over on the Dynasty Big Board podcast. And that's about it.
You finally got Dynasty Big Board out. Usually you were stumbling over it because you kept wanting to say your old podcast name for a while.
I know, it's switched. And then it's the Dynasty Big Board on the Rookie Big Board Podcast Network. It's a lot. So I just say my podcast. Yeah. And I retweet it sometimes. So just search on my Twitter for it if you want to see it.
You'll find it. Just go to your Twitter site and you'll find everything you need right there.
Yeah. You'll find a bunch of other garbage you don't want to see. Awesome. The podcast, not garbage. Everything else, garbage.
All right, great podcast, guys. As always, guys, you can find me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We do have a few cool things coming up here soon. In July, we actually just booked all of them. We're going to have our division previews every year. Of course, we do division previews different than everybody else. We do them in a mock draft format. Basically, we do the division, and we do a 2-round mock draft for that division only. And you got to pick players from that division, which gets pretty hairy towards the end of the draft. There, you're picking players that you're really digging deep on. So make sure you check that out. We got some great guests coming up in July.
ESPN stole that idea, right?
Did they stole my idea?
I heard they're doing that this year and copying off us.
I swear we've had it for a couple of years now, so I can go back and say, hey, this was my idea. I claim that, ESPN.
See how that goes over.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, who are you? I don't even know who the hell you are. Get out of my face. Guys, for Ryan, for Vay, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all next week.